The next is property held by fiduciaries. This is where the Form 56 comes in. Unclaimed funds held by life insurance corporations. The next is property held by state courts and public officers and agencies. This is the part we'll be going over very briefly. And I'll link into how Form 56 can be used in court cases briefly, even though that's not the focus here. And I'll show you how people intend to use that in court cases. Property held by banking or financial organization or by business association. Make this make sense. I'll be doing a great injustice to you by just going to that form and saying, fill it out, send it out. No. We're going to go into how and why it works. Within the time that I saw these things in the back end, I only saw about 3 people do what I'm telling you here. So this is quite rare. And 2 of those 3 times that I saw someone claimed these escrow funds from what these employers have been doing on the back end, 2 of those times, people were running around like chickens with their heads cut off, because it brings certain other entities in an equation that says, all right, give this man or woman their money. The 3rd instance that I saw, it was actually one of the people working there that claimed it. So, and that was after we saw that, oh shit, so you can do this too? So we here as administrators, this shit applies to us? Well, let one of us try it and see what's going on. And when one of us did it and it worked, that was the 3rd time that I saw it done, and it went very smooth. So we on the back end learned from someone else that was doing it, because we're seeing all the documents. Jaws are just dropping that, oh my God. After that was when I left like, fuck this shit. I'm not participating in this. And most importantly, I can do this shit myself on a greater level, because where there's this hierarchy of matters like this.
I recall the first time it dawned on me that the attraction of a man to a woman's behind is not necessarily a big deal to a woman. She's quite unaware of it. And in fact, she might at some point be baffled about it. For instance, her butt. In her mind, at some point in her life, wondered why a man is so fascinated with that part of her body. And she probably thinks of it logically that, well, fecal matter comes out of this. Why? It didn't take too far for me to also realize that men don't realize that women are unaware of their fascination with certain parts of the female's body until experience teaches her that, this is something that a man is attracted to. The same thing applies in every aspect of life, especially when it comes to this thing you call your rights. See, the majority of people working for these entities that engage in tortious activities towards the everyday man and the everyday woman, these people are not really aware of the extent of what many consider malice that the higher-ups have as a company culture, until they start realizing that that which even they would not tolerate is complacently accepted by people, and they become stronger, they become more efficient, all because of what you have allowed to happen. You hear quite often people speak of consent is required by the governed, and in fact it's mentioned by most declarations of constitution of certain states. But how that consent comes to life, most don't realize. But the end of the extreme of that thing, when it comes to the consent of the governed is required, or the use of paperwork, is where people assume that if they just put something in paper and they send it, that is the holy grail and everything will just magically begin to shift. That's not what that portion of these declarations and the constitutions mean. That is not what the concept of having your document precede you mean. What it simply means is you begin by knowing, no different than someone in sales or marketing, you have to properly position yourself in a manner whereby the people that your target will still be aware of you outside of them actively interacting with you. That's called positioning. However form that comes in is up to you and based on the particular industry and your level of creativity and experience. The same applies with this thing called rights that are merely affirmed in black and white. These black and white things do not give it to you. It affirms it. Therefore, you must preemptively do the same, not by just sending documents to people and hoping it works. Want to know how that works? Start with the playlist that I've created, a free version of it, on the YouTube page. It consists of several hundreds of videos. And after that, once you feel comfortable enough, come join us on Patreon. Come to the monthly meetings we have on Tier 3 and Tier 4. Before you even get anything on the website, I implore you to read the subtle blogs. I implore you to explore the libraries. Before you get anything, get the foundational comprehension. As you study these things, what you need to do would merge with what you desire, which is that thing called freedom for many people. And you will realize how intrinsic it has always been this entire time. Everything we have here in Subtle Substance is the same as a mere reminder of the value of what you might have forgotten through continuous experience. Like that female who once thought she was ugly and then suddenly realized she's a bad. Like that dude who once had low self-esteem. Then suddenly realized, hold up here, I might be the main character. That's right. That's you, the everyday man and woman. You, the everyday man and woman, are the real heroes. But heroic act can quickly turn naive without competence in the real world. I assist people get a better in-depth comprehension of the functions behind these things beyond just the surface level. So I invite you on the Patreon page. If you are joining it annually, there's an annual discount code currently running. A bit of caveat though, because the majority of people have spent a few decades of their lives being taken advantage of and thereafter followed some guru based on speculations which feels good and sounds good, which turns out to be a semblance of the thing they've attempted to avoid. I'm letting you know this is not guruship and definitely not a shortcut or a feel-good environment. If this sounds like something you are one with, then the Subtle Club at the Patreon page is the way. God, there's another equivalence on another level, which was the reason why I initially began speaking about the PPMs. And this right here really shows you how it ties into the federal system rather than just being isolated to any given state, in this case, Minnesota. Then we'll go over period of limitation. In other words, the boundaries of, what you can do and whatnot as far as your duty to file certain documents on an administrative level. It's like the Matrix, where one door is closed and when you open it, it looks out into a mountain view, and then you open that same door, close it and open it, it goes into a savanna, or that same door, you close it and you open it and it goes into some alleyway or some backyard. That's how all these financial things are. That is telling you within that movie Matrix that it's based on contractual basis that opens and closes certain paths. The contract is the door. The paths is how it is used. I'm showing it to you here. Uniform disposition. And how to get rid of unclaimed property. Every time you work, 75, 80 hours, 40 hours, 5 hours, 10 hours, and they are obligated to, quote, cut a check to you, that on their bookkeeping is expense. And that is taken out as a debt against the insurance that they take out on your head before they plug into the Matrix is no different than that thing they're also going into. They just deliberately created a safe haven for themselves. That's the reason why the bots are always able to come, those little octopus looking thing, come and destroy their bases because they are still in the Matrix. Most people think that the world that they're looking for is just completely removed while they are still in the Matrix. They're the one in the illusion. They're the ones still deluded. They're the real bots who think they are free just because they're using buzzwords. And then they get a bunch of gurus spouting a bunch of nonsense to them. Those gurus are the lady in the red dress. The next important transition now is what you must know as to the thinking of why
certain taxes are taken out. When I tell you that certain employer in certain states have certain contracts that they engage in, and they use the employee, the everyday man, as a form of agreement or an extension of themselves to engage in write-offs, and the back door or the cloud for them to use you as a tax write-off. Here it is. (26 USC 581) Definition of bank. For most people who watch soda substance videos, you should know what 26 USC stand for. But for the sake of not assuming everyone is in the same place, and for the sake of those that might be watching this in the future, 28 USC deals with Internal Revenue Code. And when you are dealing with Internal Revenue Code, it is nothing but monies. Hence the term revenue within the phrase Internal Revenue Service. And the only revenue they're looking at is how they can take from a cut, from what you have. And that is done in many different ways, where they put a noose on the neck of the employer, who subsequently defers that onto you using different means called taxes. And the only revenue they're looking at is how they can take from a cut, from what you have. And that is done in many different ways, where they put a noose on the neck of the employer, who subsequently defers that onto you using different means called taxes, aka employment taxes, withholding taxes. Merely sending them a withholding notice that's vague to say I don't want to do this is not sufficient. There's no one broad blanket as to how you use all of this. 26 USC subsection 581, definition of bank. All this, in fact, has to do with a form of banking. And the IRS explains that to you. In this video, we've explained the difference between the fact that a bank, that you see a physical structure, brick and mortar, is very, very different from banking. And in the matter of revenue and taxing, the IRS defines to you for the purpose of using other people as tax deduction, aka other people who are stocks, aka equity, aka property, aka interest, aka employee of an employer. How you can use your employee to remove tax liabilities from you. That process is private banking. And as a stepping stone to it, IRS explains to you what they mean by the term bank, specific to this nature of what they are doing by using the employer to remove their tax liability. For purpose of section 582 and 584, which we'll be reading, the term quote unquote bank means a bank or trust company incorporated and doing business under the laws of the United States. This is what I mean when I say your employer already has a contract with federal and state preemptive to you, which you are now just joining under, thus makes you subject to those preemptive contracts because you are simply perceived within that dynamic as an extension of the employer and can be used however desired. They don't explain all of this to you because, well, all they want from you is just compliance. They don't want competence or comprehension of how your relationship with them and other third parties or first party or second parties work. Just come in, do your job. We'll give you something, but before we give you that something called your wage or money based on what we've determined your worth, we'll take out of it first because you don't know how to do business. That's the perspective they perceive all these things from. It's nothing personal. It's just business. For purpose of section 582 and 584, the term quote bank means a bank or trust company incorporated and doing business. The key word here is incorporated. So not just merely a bank or a trust company, but more so incorporated and doing business under the laws of the United States. In other words, This United States is another corporation to which that employer who is incorporated is beholden to, including laws relating to the District of Columbia. In other words, the principles of bankruptcy and modern money mechanics is inevitably attached. That's the reason why they added that part. Don't people know about the whole bankruptcy 1933 thing? They do. They know about some fixed square mile being just the United States. But where are the practical function of that in daily lives, and how does it drip into all the things they do? Most people cannot explain that. This is part of that explanation. This is an extension of the function of contractual basis, of how those generally known facts that most people perceive as being isolated actually connect. They give it to you in black and white. For purposes of section 582 and 584, the term bank means a bank or a trust company, in other words, holding companies, incorporated in doing business under the laws of the United States, aka generally accepted accounting principles, or of any state, in other words, state taxes and federal taxes, a substantial part of the business of which consists of receiving deposits and making loans and discounts. Receiving deposits is getting funding, either through return and investment of the business directly or through state or federal grants. Making loans, making meaning creating, not receiving, because loans are not considered income. So this making loan is giving out notes and promise to pay. Guess what? On each of the employees' head, no different than banks take out insurance on you every time you open a bank account, your employee do too. It's the reason why they always want to be quick to sell you that insurance benefits, not letting you know that you can do yours even better, as we've shown in this patron post. Whenever they take out that insurance, they're taking out a loan against you, because that insurance policy, you can take loan out against it. But they're not letting you know about that though. And nonetheless, this is precisely referring to that. A substantial part of the business of which consists of receiving deposits and making loans and discount. This is when they discharge it. Or of exercising fiduciary. The complete video has been posted on the patron page. Until next time, take care. Best of luck.